But the most important thing is be mindful of the situation. Because when you're down and you're hurt and you think you want to go train, you can't do that, so you gotta be mindful of the situation. But if it's something to do with not being able to get up because of a lot of things that are weighing you down, I try to encourage people to dig a little bit deeper, because there is the extra strength that you have a little bit, even if it's a little bit, to start to use that to get back up. Because if you trying to use the strength to get you up, that means you can get back up again. Think about boxing. You can be beat up every single time, but as long as you can still get up, it shows a lot of strength. And so that's my encouragement is try, talk to some people, positive people, and say, hey, how can you help me get back up? And with me for coaching that's why I get people back up from what they've struggled with. And it could be injuries and different things like that. And even for therapy, it's just you pick people back up and lift them back up again. And so positive relationships could help.
That is Benson Langat, and this is the Well Mind Podcast. Welcome to the show. This is episode 2. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Kohls. I got a question for you today. How are you living your life? It's a tough question, right? And it's a question today's guest was recently asked, and one that I hope that we can all reflect on. In today's show, Benson offers his insights on this question and so much more. Benson recently completed his master's degree in social work and is now serving as a therapist for family services in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He's an elite athlete, a running coach, and the director of coaching services at 605 Running Company in Sioux Falls. In today's conversation, Benson shares with us his running journey and the impact community has had on him. He speaks about building personal wellness, hope, and motivation through an intentional process of giving and receiving within his community. It hasn't been all first place finishes and celebrations for Benson, though. Like all of us, he has experienced setbacks and disappointments. But I have to say that Benson is a model of perseverance and the embodiment of the growth mindset. When he sees a problem or encounters pain, he moves towards it. He seeks to grow and develop himself through whatever obstacles he is facing. Benson speaks about the power of showing up in order to cultivate discipline and using goal setting to guide decision making. All right, I could go on, but I better stop here and let us get into the show. So here we go, episode 2 of the Well Mind Podcast, Finding Your Extra Strength. Hey, Benson, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I feel really honored to have you as one of the initial guests in our show. I've been looking forward to this conversation today since we had our brief chat in kind of preparation for this. So one of the things that I wanted to start talking about first today was just this awesome experience that you had a couple of weekends ago running the virtual Boston Marathon. And I was following along online and watching your progress with updates on videos and posts on social media, those kind of things. I just wish I could have been there in person. So kind of give me the rundown. How did the day go? What was it like? Tell me about the experience.
Thanks again for having me on your show. This is actually my first ever podcast, so I'm honored too. So thank you for having me.
This is great.
So the virtual experience was, from the beginning, I had never run the Boston Marathon, and so I was hoping to someday. I had been putting it off for a long time. I qualified multiple times, and I've been saying, you know what, I'm not doing it. And when it went virtual, um, I was just hoping to just run it, have somebody do hydration for me and things like that. But I talked to a couple of my friends, and they said, bring the experience to the people in the community. I think this would be something positive. And so I thought about it, and race management is not something easy. I found out that. And so I wanted to make sure that the conditions that I'm setting for myself are exactly the way I wanted it to be. And so I did plan out my route. I mapped it out. I went on a bike. I did my workouts on the route. I biked it more than 6 times to just make sure that I'm getting enough distance on that. And so coming into the race, I mean, there was a lot that came into that.
Yeah, a lot of preparation. I mean,
Hmm.
because there was like you said, this was more of a community kind
Hmm.
of event. There were a lot of people involved in
Hmm.
this experience. Yeah, it wasn't just you and somebody biking next to you, throwing water at you every few minutes.
Yes. Yeah. And and that's what made the event very special is I had, parts of the city and parts of a lot of things that I'm involved in. They were all part of it. My paces were everything that I'm associated with in the city. Having the mayor being representing the city, and all my paces represented something. And so to me, that was special. And I thought it was special that given the opportunity to be able to do that here in Sioux Falls. I call Sioux Falls my second home, and the running community itself is just basically shown me that this I don't have a second home. This is basically my second home. And so to be able to have all those people, I mean, it became just a community thing. I thought I was running. I thought it was about my running, but really it was not.
Mm.
And
When,
so the
when did it
community itself.
change? When did it change for you, Benson, where it was like, oh, I'm just going to do this virtual experience, put a bib on.
Hmm.
I've done a couple of virtual events during COVID as well. You kind of go out there and it's a solo adventure, but
Hmm.
you really made a conscious decision to change course and say, no, this isn't about me. This is about community. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
how did you make that switch?
It changed with everything going on right now with COVID. There was a lot of people don't have a lot of races to go to. There's people who wanted, who been wanting to be part of something, and to me, it changed. Well, it did change when I was named one of the honorable members of the 2020 Boston team, and I said, I wouldn't get here if it wasn't for the community. And so this solely became the community once I received the honorable mention. And so that changed my perspective on how I wanted to have my race. And so it did change because, as you know me, a little bit going back, a little bit of my history is I had given up running after college, and through the running community here and the people that I've met, it's just been able to elevate that for me. And so my running career has developed just because of the people in the community. And so for that, I found that during that time that it's not so much about me; it's just about the community.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the Sioux Falls running community is fantastic. As having been a part of that for a while,
Mm-hmm.
it was just a tremendous blessing to have so
Mm-hmm.
many people with diverse experiences and backgrounds, but all coming together kind of in this one activity and sharing that time, whether it's on the road, on the bike path around Sioux Falls, out on the trails. Really dynamic and large
Mm-hmm.
community of runners. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you kind of referenced your history with running, and maybe that would be good to just explain a little bit too, because running has been a really big part of your life at times, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then there are times when it hasn't been. You've been focused on other things
Mm-hmm.
and other goals or other activities. So can
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of give us a brief? history of you and where running has kind of fit in with that.
Mhm. So a little bit about my background in running. I was not a runner. In high school, I played other sports except I never did, I never ran. I mean, I did some running in, for conditioning, but it was not my sport. And so I was playing rugby.
Yeah, you did more team sports, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so I did soccer. I mean, I was really good doing rugby, and in Kenya there's handball, and that's a different sport. So I was really good at handball and rugby and other team sports, but I really didn't pick up running. But after college, I mean, after high school, I wanted something different. I I started running because I knew I heard you could get scholarship if you run, and I wanted to come to United States, and so that was the only avenue for me to start running. And so joined a club in Kenya, worked with the coach there, and he became my coach until I came. Ran at the junior college in Kansas. Um, then transferred to University of South Dakota, where my running career just kind of progressed. And then after college, I mean, I wanted to take a break, and I did, and realized there was something missing about. I mean, missing about missing with me, and so I said, I think it's running, and so I started running again, and I tried and I failed because I wanted to pick up exactly where I left from college, and I wasn't clicking, so I quit again. And then one day I walked to my coach, my former coach at University of South Dakota, Fitzsimmons, said, "Hey, go to 605 Running Company. They have groups there." And I started going there. I mean, I met Greg there, and welcomed me and said, "Hey, you're welcome to our group runs." And since then, I mean, it's picked up, and life has changed with a lot of different things over time. During that time, I've gone back to school again, and just running has just been part of me since then. Whether through ups and lows of racing, and I mean, it's changed, but it's something that it's become a big part of my life now.
Yeah. Yeah. Your identity as an athlete started as a younger kid and then going into high school and playing these team sports, but because you had some goals for education and coming to the US and scholarship, that propelled you into this thing that is running.
Mm-hmm.
And you really committed yourself to that. I imagine as a collegiate athlete on scholarship and doing that really becomes a huge part of your identity.
Mm-hmm.
But I know too, in talking with collegiate athletes, that there can be a real high burnout rate as well with that, because the demands are so high, the margin for error is so small. And so when you finally kind of get out of that, there are lots of people that just walk away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of talk to me about what your mindset. I don't know if you can remember all the way back then, kind of where you were at, but what was your mindset as you were coming out of college? You just been running a ton and doing very well for yourself that way, to just say, I need a break from it.
One of the thing was also it was not so much I don't want to run anymore. It was so much I don't have anybody to run with, because that being in a team, running is also like I became the distance team at my college at University of South Dakota. We were close that every runs we did together. I mean, I didn't know how to run by myself.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to train by myself. And so missing the team aspect of it created, I didn't see a point of going back to running. And then I was thinking about it, and, you're trying to, in college, a lot of things do happen. You're trying to balance your education, working part-time, and also still trying to perform at your best. I mean, the first thing that I wanted to give a break was running. And so for me, I gave that a break for some time, and it's something that it was missing in my schedule. It was missing in my schedule, and that's why I needed to regroup back again and say, what is something that's missing for me? And running was one of the things that was missing. And so I had to um, start with baby steps again. It was a different process. But through the events of what happened after I started, it gave me motivation. It gave me hope that, I can still run again.
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying, for you and for, I would guess, many people, running and community
Mm-hmm.
are in the same circle, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You run as a part of a community, and you feel a part of that community because of that shared activity of running. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the other piece that was kind of missing when you said you left college, and that was your team. Those were your people that you spent that you're running with.
Mm-hmm.
So then going to the running store in Sioux Falls, 605, their group runs, started nurturing some of that sense of community again.
Mm-hmm. And this time it was different. It was different because it's new, all new, different playing field of like not the same people every time. I started reconnecting back. I mean, I started connecting with people that I had even competed with, years back, and I didn't even notice that I had competed with them. One of my friends, Nick Penning, we realized we competed at the national championship together, but we didn't know each other until we connected in Sioux Falls when he ran for Gillette College, and so it was just crazy to see the dynamic of kind of this is a really small world, and you meet different people at different paces, but that community, the running community itself, created its own. It helped me. It helped me just knowing that I'm not alone out there. There's somebody out there. And nowadays, I run on the bike path here in Sioux Falls. We have a beautiful bike trail system, and I'm sure you know that. And so I go there it doesn't matter what time of the day. Or what time of the I run into people and I've become friends with them. I've just become friends. You run into the bike path. Some of them them individually. Some of them as just the people that you run into. So the community itself is just something that it becomes special, and it becomes something that gives you motivation. It gives you hope. And so for me, I tell my friends, if you want to hang out with me, sometimes we gotta hang out on the bike path because
Yeah.
that's a place to hang out. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a huge part of who you are, and what's
yeah,
important to you.
yeah. So yeah.
So you're kind of talking about some of the benefits
Hmm.
that you receive from running, and
Hmm.
you're not talking about the obvious ones, Benson. Like, I'm in
Yeah,
better shape, and
yeah, yeah.
I feel fit, and like all of these, what we normally think of as physical health benefits.
Hmm.
But what you're talking about in terms of hope, connection, motivation, these are definitely more psychological and emotional benefits, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So maybe we can kind of dive into that a little bit,
Hmm.
and you can talk about your experience as a coach now yourself, in not just trying to help people be physically well or
Hmm.
achieve these kind of physical goals, but to be well from a more holistic standpoint.
Hmm. Hmm. I had an experience to work with kids at Children's Home Society. Um, that is where all perspective of hope and um, a lot of the benefits you get from running is. Um, we were one time watching the Olympics, and a lot of kids were so excited to watch the Olympics, and say, "Hey, can I go run right now?" I mean, remember it's 8 o'clock at night, but Benson, can we go run? And you say, "No, we can try that tomorrow." Um, and for me, I get butterflies every time competitions are on, especially with running. And so for me, it just ignites a fire knowing that the benefit that I get from it is just not only the physical fitness, but also the drive to be successful in something. And so, and being successful in something doesn't mean you win all the time. It's just really you went to a race, you gave it all. The satisfaction of it is very different. The drive, comes out of self-discipline. And that's a lot of the things that I've learned from running has helped me in my life in general. For example, um, for me, I use running as an instrument, as a tool, as a vehicle for me to help me with what I do in my career as as a therapist and also as a coach. And all those two things go together. One of the things that I see is you look at somebody that come to you in terms of running and wants you to help them get better. You teach about the consistency. You teach about consistency in terms of, yeah, you want to be better at something, you have to be consistent. And so when you look at those things, I apply those to my real life, my real life experiences. And for me, running has not just been just a sport that I do enjoy. Overall, for mental wellness and physical wellness, it's been a big attribute of who I am as a person and what I strive for. And so so working with different groups, with a coaching or during therapy sessions, you almost talk about the same thing. The same thing is you don't want to be at a standstill in life. You want to keep moving as you adapt to situation, and what you get from that is you see hope. And so for me, I look at a goal and I say, how do I get there? And that means you have to incorporate a lot of things, and all these things that include um, that include discipline, motivation. Those are some of the things that fuel me every day. And so yeah, I think running overall just doesn't give me the winning or it gives me a lot of things to look forward for in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it starts really with some level of inspiration. I mean, when you were talking about working with kids and watching the Olympics with them, like you felt inspired by their excitement, their energy. That it was 8 o'clock at night, and they were like, "Let's go for a run. Let's do it right now." That kind of spark is a it's a fantastic starting point. But then when you get into it, when you actually, you set a goal and you say, okay, this is what I'm going to work toward, that spark is only going to carry you so far. Right? So it's going to be a good jump start, but you're talking about sustained motivation to persevere, to practice forms of self-discipline in order to really work toward that goal. And I know you well enough that I know that you're a very disciplined and dedicated person. And so once you make a commitment to something, you're all in. You're going to follow through on that. And this virtual Boston Marathon experience is just kind of one example. It's of that, and I think we could probably identify a number of other ones. But what I want to hear a little bit more about is what does it take to have that self-discipline, to have that perseverance? You get that spark, you sign up for a race, or you set a goal in therapy that I want to change this thing in my life. But how do I keep going?
It starts with the willingness to want to do it, because if you're committed to it, it's easy to say I want to change something. One of the things that changes everything is behavior. Behavior is something that we are in control of, and we can change that. And so if you have a goal to accomplish something, and there's things that is standing on the path to being successful at something, I mean, there's got to be a behavioral change. And so one of the things that I personally do is I look at my routine, and I look at what are the things that I need to do. And so for example, if I set a goal and I want to accomplish, when I was running my virtual Boston Marathon, there's a lot of things that I was busy. I'm working and coaching and still trying to do the event planning and still want to be disciplined at getting my runs in. I mean, there's a lot of things in that point that I wanted to take care of, that needed my attention. But having the discipline, just staying committed to your goal. And it's just everything that you want to accomplish something. If you want to get paid, you have to show up at your job every single time. If you're somebody who get paid hourly, then you have to be there at a certain time. And so it's just a behavior of, if I'm late, then I'm gonna get a writing. Like you'll be told, hey, why are you late all the time? But if you want something, in my belief, I think just showing up really helps a lot with that. It helps a lot. And then through the process of showing up, you're able to learn a lot of different things. And so being disciplined in a way that you're committed. Nelson Mandela, one of my heroes, says it's impossible. It seems impossible until it's done. So if you have a goal and you think it's too high to reach, give it a try and see. If you fail, that's fine. Then you can try it again and try it again. I mean, and that's what I've been doing. I've tried 4 marathons. I failed big time. I could be in the best shape of my life. We all ran Los Angeles Marathon. You, Greg, Ben, and I, and I was in the best shape of my life, but everything fell off for me at mile 7. I could have used that to define me and say, hey, this was a bad race and I'm done with running. But I came back, took a break, came back and retracked back again. I know I have a goal. For me to accomplish my Baja Boston Marathon, I needed to change some things. And so it takes discipline. It takes, I call it, using the extra strength. The strength that you feel like you don't have, the strength that you feel like you're tired and can't go for a run, is the extra strength that it gets you through some other things. And overall life overall is, somebody once said, if you're tired and you can't do it, that's an excuse, because you and I know that some days you feel tired and after you go for a run, you feel like very energized. Mm-hmm. And so the change in behavior and discipline is what I think gets you to accomplish that goal. Because if you want it bad, you're going to get it.
So that thank you, first of all. I mean, that there was so much good stuff there that I want to be able to dive into a little bit more here. But this overarching idea of making the choice to do it, like it starts with behavior. I'm not going to feel like it. Physically, I'm tired, or emotionally, I'm drained. But I still make the choice to do it, and just showing up. And some of those aren't going to go well. Maybe it's showing up to work and it's just not a good day at work. Maybe it's showing up for the run and it's just hard. It just feels miserable the whole time. And we love to feel good when we're running, but the reality is that
not all the time.
That's not always the case, is it?
Yeah.
Now, I just had one of those last weekend. I just felt busted. And I was like, well, I'm going to put on some music. I'm going to get up and I'm going to make sure I see the sunrise, because I know that's going to help. And I'm just going to get it done. And I did. And I had a great day afterward, but I didn't feel like it, certainly. So showing up and making that choice to do it in spite of whatever barriers or excuses I might have. That's a huge part. And then the other thing that you said too, that I think is important, that maybe you can speak a little bit more, is that when we do show up and it doesn't go well, and if we feel like, oh, that was kind of a failure, that was not a victory, clearly. And you kind of reference the LA Marathon as maybe one of those moments for you where it's like, I was in the best shape of my life. I showed up. and it didn't feel like a victory. So I don't, when you don't have that, when you don't have those victories, those successes, even though you're showing up, how do you persevere through something like that? How did you do that, Benson?
For me, I thought about all the hard work that I've put in, all the hard work that I had put in, going into the race. I mean, I thought about all that, and I was like, wow, how did everything go wrong? I have to come into, to realization that there will be good and bad days. There's going to be different weather, throughout the year. You'll have fall, summer, winter, and spring. One of those days, that day for me was not a good day in terms of, it was a different season for me, a season that I wasn't adapting to what the training is. It wasn't showing me the results of what I had done. I mean, I look at my run sometime, I'm like, wow, I did better in training. But for me to adapt with that, I took some time off and had to come back and, rethink about it. And I just remembered, this is part of the process. This is part of the process. And it may take almost 10,000 hours of training, or 20,000, or however long, just to get that one race that it just goes well. And that's the spirit that I have. Is some days it may seem like everything is now falling in place. And a quick example will be my training for this virtual Boston Marathon. I started in March. I had an Achilles injury, and I could hardly keep up. Like, I normally do my easy runs around 6-minute pace to around 7:25 pace. I could hardly keep an 8:45-minute pace, and I struggled. Honestly, I struggled from March all the way to May. I was rethinking. I was really hoping that I could run even faster, because I had taken some time, to deal with my injury. I could have gave up in May, in April, and say, you know what, forget about this. I'm done with it. But I had to come to realization that it takes time. Progress takes time. And my coach taught me about patience. He said, just be patient. It will come. It would all fit in. And so I just kept showing up. I kept showing up even on the hardest days. I mean, and then one day I went on a long run. It took one long run to open up the rest of the summer for me. And so I went on a long run around the bike path, and I ran really well and very consistently and way faster than I thought I would. And then he just told me, it was a life lesson that if I had given up in April, I would never had that. I had the best training this summer. I went all the way up to 142 miles a week, which was the highest. And it's just because of the motivation and pushing myself. Even though my body feels like I don't need to, my mind is telling me, hey, you can do it. I kept tricking it that I can do it. And so, telling yourself, it's a mental game, really, telling yourself what is going to really get you to where you need to be. And that's what I think. I go back and forth and say, what did I do wrong, and what do I need to do to make things better for me? And I just know that, this things get better over time. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
What a great example of the Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck, kind of the founder, the person that coined the term growth mindset, in her book from 2007. What an amazing example of that, Benson, because you took adversity as a learning experience, as an opportunity to step back and figure things out and try and learn from that, so that you could apply that learning going forward. And the other part of that growth mindset is being able to see a challenge and move toward it rather than move away from it. And so, earlier in the year, you were having a lot of challenges physically, which then kind of, I'm sure, noodled into your brain a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you had some mental challenges, but you continued to move toward that
Mm-hmm.
with patience as well. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
the part that your coach was encouraging: patience. It will come. It will come. Just keep
Mm-hmm.
showing up, keep putting in the work, keep learning from it, and it's going to happen. And then, yeah, you had a breakthrough experience this summer that really led to some substantial gains in your training.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say for everybody out there, um, you don't have to be running a 6-minute pace or
Exactly.
running 142 miles in a
Mm-hmm.
week. You could be running a 15-minute pace, and
Mm-hmm.
you could be doing, 10 miles a week.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. It's the same principles wherever you're at in that journey, of being able to apply discipline, to keep showing up, learning from adversity, and moving toward challenge, right?
I agree with that 100%. And I always tell my athletes, we all build differently. My goal could be different than your goal, but as long as you're accomplishing the goal, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Winning doesn't mean to be you have to be the first place. Winning could be just crossing even the getting past the 1 mile
Yeah,
mark and
just getting
saying,
to the start line, right?
the starting line is winning,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that's just that what's hard is just the start. But once you get to the start, that is the beginning of everything. And that could be a start from a career or a new challenge, a new like just anything that you want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, for you yourself, for the clients that you serve as a therapist, or the athletes that you work with as a coach, how do you try and cultivate that persistence, that positivity that says, yeah, this is hard work, and I'm up for it, or you're up for it, and this is how we're going to keep this momentum going, or try and build momentum. Once people have had that spark, they've made that decision or commitment to say, I'm going to work on this. Yeah, how do you cultivate that persistence and motivation?
One of the things that I first look at is, are you willing to do this? Because the willingness of wanting to do it is the first step. It's like arriving at the starting line. And then after that, we talk about how do we put one foot in front of the other one. For example, if you have things that you're struggling with in life, how do we put foot in front of the other? And most importantly is I help people understand that you don't need to be at a standstill to make progress. You keep moving and you adapt to different situations. And so I help, by cultivating that. But you know, I try to help people that I see, either clients or that I see for therapy, or my athletes. I help them understand that this is a journey that's not going to be easy. But if you want to get there, we all are going to get there, but we will need to just work harder. And by working hard means we need to be disciplined in some ways. Because if, for example, you want to run a marathon and you just want to run once a week, I mean, if you don't have time to create other days for training, I mean, the marathon is not a priority. Because yeah, you want to do it, but if you want to progress with something, you create time for it. You make it a priority that this is my goal. That's why a lot of the times New Year's resolutions always last at least 2 weeks, for some people 3 weeks, and then it fades off. Is because you don't let you don't let yourself accustomed to the routine and then becoming consistent and showing up every day. It's easy to just kind of go under the rug and say, you know what, that was hard, I'm not doing it, or I don't have time. But also seeing how important the goal is Are you willing to walk the journey? And then if you're willing to walk the journey, then I'm there to assist, and I'm there to help and say, hey, you fell off the plan. Let's get back again. How do we do this? And most importantly is understanding it, understanding the whole process of this is what I'm into. It's not going to be easy, but impossible is nothing. Impossible, I mean, everything is possible if you're willing to put in the work. There is some things that are impossible for sure, but by helping people understand that. And then I create a relationship with my, people that I work with, and I help them be, through the journey. And most of the time, you teach a lot of different things. Adaptation, you adapt to situation, you cope with stress differently, and you look at the person, and like I said, we are built differently, and so what you can adapt differently to your to your training or whatever things you do in life, and I do it differently, and so you're looking at that is you help understand the person and then build in what you know about the person.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of leads me into wanting us to talk about another thing that I know is really important to you, something that you're really passionate about, and that's creating a sense of space for the time and the effort that's needed to achieve your goals. But you're a man of many goals. You've set a lot of goals, even outside of running. And with your recent completion of your master's degree, stepping into a therapist position, like I know there's a ton of learning and work that goes into it, even after you're done with the degree. So how do you create this sense of balance in your life when you have multiple goals? Rarely in life can we be singularly focused, right? That's usually a gift that we get if we can just focus on one thing. But for most of us, we have lots of roles and responsibilities in life. And it's really hard to find balance in that. So I don't know, can you speak a little bit to that, Benson?
One of the things that I've when I come into United States, that's one of the things that I had to quickly adjust to. Was I was working full time, I was taking 21 credits, and then I was, so I was working part time, not full time. I was working part time. I was taking 21 credits, and I was also a student athlete, and so that to me, I had to adapt to that quickly. One of the things that I think over time I've become is I think I've become a better manager of my time in terms of what I do, and I just feel like I keep adding tasks to my life but I find a good balance in terms of how do I prioritize things, and that's what's helped me is what is my priority, and what is the goal, and I look at the dateline and things like that. So for example, with my job right now, transitioning into my job as a therapist, I look at, there's some things I probably need to slow down in terms of what I do um, um, outside and outside of my job and things like that. But really seeing the priority, and somebody once said, we have so many hours in a day, so many minutes in a day. Depends on how we use those hours, would affect how our day looks like. And so I've kind of look at it and I'll say, like when I was training and putting in 140 miles a week, I would get down with work, run early, get down with work. I mean, it takes a high level of discipline, and that's one thing that is being able to help me over time is basically disciplining myself in trying to meet the goals that I have. And so that would be a really high priority in terms of um, of trying to find a balance. I think it's very much discipline, because If I'm staying in the middle of the night, like 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock, and until 3 o'clock, there's no way I'm gonna wake up and try to do my run in the morning. And so that one of my goals is down. If I have a workout on a Tuesday and I'm staying until 2, 3 a.m., that brings up, it affects my goals. It's going to affect my attitude the following day because I didn't accomplish something. And the feeling of not accomplishing something would translate into a different day where you also miss out on opportunities to do the things that you wanted to do. And so mostly disciplining yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, time management is a huge part of that discipline. Then I've heard it said multiple times that if you don't manage your time, it will manage you.
Exactly.
And so it's easy to kind of pile on things, say yes to things, say, even stuff that we'd really like to do. That's exciting or interesting. But there's got to be some kind of cost benefit analysis here that's happening. Like a friend that says, hey, you want to go out tonight? We can grab some food and drinks and like you said, and then it's midnight or after, and it's like, now there's going to be, there was maybe some reward in doing that, but now there's going to be a cost to me tomorrow or even in the days afterwards. So how do you prioritize what you're going to give your time to?
Goals.
Yeah.
Goals of what I want in terms of if I have meetings with my job, that would be a high priority to me because it's I need to attend to those. So I look at things on a professional standpoint. I look at things on a community standpoint, personal standpoint, and also, like personal standpoint could be things that I'm doing. So I try to get involved in some other things that involves around me. For example, community, volunteering, doing some things. And so I look at it. I prioritize those things and say, which one needs my most attention? And so I look at those things and I said, well, it seems like this is what I would do. And then kind of put them down in the order. And then I look at them and I'm like, I want to do well in those things. And so I put the time to everything. And so it helps me overall. I'm somebody, the community has been part of me. And so there's some things I'm starting to do in terms of being part of the community. And those are some of the goals that I set to myself. I write down and some things I want to accomplish for the month. If I accomplish 60%, that to me is a win. Awesome. And it's just so you prioritize those things, and I prioritize based on the need, not the ones, just the needs. So
yeah, I'm sure there are lots of things that you'd like to be doing or that you could be doing, but what I'm hearing is this process of stepping back, giving yourself time, writing out these goals, writing out the things that are important to you, and then saying, I'm going to give them X amount of time. And then the expectation isn't that it's 100%, every month, Benson's perfect or something like that. If you say, even if I get 60%, I'm still going to feel good about that because I'm working at it. I'm giving my goals the appropriate amount of time. But that's again a conscious decision that you're making, and you're giving yourself time to reflect on that.
And a lot of the time is I had somebody ask me, how are you living your life? And that's a really hard question. And so how am I living my life is it's a very interesting question. It could mean a lot of different things, but I look at it in those 5 things in terms of I look at it in terms of community, in terms of goals, in terms of self-care, in terms of just a lot of different things. And then I rank those things and I said, well, it seems like this is where it needs more of my attention. And I look at that and say, okay, this is what I'll take care of it this month. And next month, like this month, is my down month of training. So running is not as of a high priority. So I'm putting more attention to other thing, other times that needs more attention. And yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it's not static, right? This is changing over time, based on circumstances, based on needs, based on goals achieved, new goals set. So this isn't something, you like reference New Year's resolutions. This is not a once a year thing where you write out your goals and then, okay, that's done for the next year. I mean, how often are you actually coming back to these goals and kind of reflecting on where you're spending your time over the course of the year?
What's really what I have been trying to adapt and learn from is how often I do change my athletes training, because sometimes I do it. For some athletes, I constantly have to check and change them every week because the goals vary. I mean, you start to see sudden improvement, and then the goal will be, well, they would meet this goal whether they keep training or not. They're still going to meet this goal based on the performance that they're doing. So I have to either improve, like change the goal time and say, okay, now let's shoot for something higher, or let's scale back a little bit. So that could be depending on the goal. It could be a daily basis. It could be monthly basis. For my training, mostly it would be every 6 weeks. I look at it. If I'm giving 60% of my effort and my goal is to get to 80, then I have to reevaluate that. I mean, on a training phase, and so depending on the goal, it does change over time. But overall, we do have long-term goals. I had thought about giving up running overall just because of a lot of things that I thought maybe I couldn't handle running. But then that's part of me that I'm saying, you know what? If I prioritize some other things, then I can fit running in. And my joy is in that. My joy is in running. And so not give up running completely, but say, like competitive running. But I don't know how I can live without competing,
Yeah,
And so
it's also a big part of your identity too, is just being a competitor.
Yeah. And so our minds goes through all those levels of, am I really going to have it? So the self-doubt creates varying goals, of saying, you know what, maybe I thought last month I wasn't going to accomplish something. Maybe I really need to reevaluate. And that's where you look back and say, you know what, I'm going to pick back up again on the goal that I had left hanging for a little bit. And so they do vary depending with goals.
Yeah. So along the lines with goals, I know for me personally, this year, I had set a number of goals, some of them professional goals, some of them athletic goals. And I encountered a number of barriers, right? Some of the obvious ones with COVID, like races have just been canceled. Like I know you would have preferred to actually go out to Boston and run on the course and have that experience. So there, like I get the adjustment. Okay, I'm going to adjust my goal, but then sometimes we can't do that, right? Like it's just that's gone, or that's not going to be available, or it just gets pushed back further. So the wind gets taken out of our sails, right? We kind of feel like, oh, I've been putting in this work. I have the discipline, I have the desire, but then these external forces in life have happened, and now I can't do that. So then I'm kind of sitting in dead in the water. Where do I go, Benson? What do I do to move forward, to put one step in front of the other?
See, a lot of the time, think about races. Races is and running overall. I think about it is you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of your running? If your sole purpose of running is just compete, then that would change the mindset of, okay, how do I need to create more virtual runs for myself, time trials to stay consistent to my goals? But if your sole purpose of running is wellness and then use it, compete as a source of a reward, then that is different. So really what's going to happen is the routine is not changing. So it depends on the purpose that you choose, or what is your motivation to that goal. So COVID hits and there is no races. And I've seen this many people who training is going down because of that, because there's no races to run, and other life stresses adds on top of that. I mean, people have lost jobs and things like that. How do we, how do you get up when you're down? And when you're even down, there is something stepping on you, another weight adding to you and saying, hey, you can't get back up. It's hard, it is hard. And one of the things that get really affected is motivation to even get up and do something, motivation to get out of the door and say, I am going to run some errands. Or procrastination starts from that because of motivation. But one of the things that I always say is pain is temporary. Pain is temporary. I talk sometimes to my friends about, stay ready so you don't have to be ready. A lot of the time we're waiting for races to open up and then we'll start training. But what do you do during I call this off season. What do you do during off season? Are you staying stronger? Are you working on the goal? Because if you're not, then when races open up, then amount of stress starts to pile up again, because it might not find you when you're ready. But the most important thing is be mindful of the situation, because when you're down and you're hurt and you think you want to go train, you can't do that, so you gotta be mindful of the situation. But if it's something to do with not being able to get up because of a lot of things that are weighing you down, I try to encourage people to dig a little bit deeper, because there is the extra strength that you have, a little bit, even if it's a little bit, to start to use that to get back up. Because if you trying to use the strength to get you up, that means you can get back up again. Think about boxing. You can be beat up every single time, but as long as you can still get up, I mean, it shows a lot of strength. It shows a lot of strength. And so that's my encouragement is try, talk to some people, positive people, and say, hey, how can you help me get back up? And with me for coaching is that's why I get people back up from what they've struggled with. And it could be injuries and different things like that. And even for therapy, it's just you pick people back up and lift them back up again. And so positive relationships could help. And or even self-searching, see to yourself, what do I really want to accomplish? And once you find that and set a goal, and write the steps to get you there. And overall, I think that would help.
Yeah. And I mean, where you started was talking about purpose. You have to understand why you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the goal is, tapping into the reason behind it, so that's going to keep you going. So like you said, like if it's competition, if that's one of the main things, then you have to find alternative ways of being able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And being flexible, adjusting, adapting, coping with
Mm-hmm.
those changes. But for a lot of folks, like, we're not out there to compete. We're not out there, maybe compete against ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
to better ourselves, to see, well, can I improve this, on my time or on my pace, or in some other metric that I'm choosing to focus on. But
Mm-hmm.
if you know your purpose, it's going to be a lot simpler, maybe not easy, but simpler to follow through on some of that.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, I think what you were saying, that sometimes it's injury that's holding us back.
Mhm.
If it's a physical injury, or if we've experienced some sort of emotional or psychological injury, a
Mhm.
major stressor that's happened in our life, um, that we have to attend to that first,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
We do
Mhm.
need to like pause, slow down, say, okay, maybe this isn't the goal that I need to be working on. I need to take care
Work
of,
on it.
work on this part, this
Mhm.
injury, physical, mental, emotional, whatever it is, um, so that I can get back to working on some of these other goals.
I agree with you. And you can perform at your best if you're not yourself. And so you care for you first, and then the rest of it will follow.
Yeah, and like you said, that's not going to happen. Most of the time, that's not going to happen in isolation, right?
Mhm.
Connecting with somebody, connecting with a community, asking for help, asking for coaching or guidance, or support in some way, shape, or form is a key ingredient to
Mhm.
that process of getting back to whole, getting back to
Mhm.
yourself.
Mhm. And I mean, and I think that's important thing. And from my personal experience too, it's taken the relationships that I've had, and mostly positive relationships, to um, help me get to where I am. It's just like you have a source to, hey, I'm struggling with something. Then you reach out to somebody, say, hey, how did you get around this issue? Injuries, things like that. Even overall mental health. You stay stronger when you stay stronger with seeking resources in terms of like helping you get to those steps, because again, we isolations can do a lot of different things, and so you struggle with motivation in isolation, and so a lot of the time, teamwork helps. And so it could be teamwork from two people in your cycle that I mean, that helps. It could be one person in your cycle, and so I think that's very important.
Yeah, yeah, well said for sure.
Mhm.
Um, all right. Well, let's bring this home. Let's try and hit our finish line here. One of the things that I'm curious about when having a guest on the show is what kind of things you're working on. If we've been talking a lot about goals today, so kind
Mhm.
of the what's next for you. What are your sights set on? That's kind of the first thing that I want to know, and then I've got a
Mhm.
couple other things too.
So one of the things that I'm working on right now is continued education in terms of my career, in terms of coaching, and also personally in terms of my running. I'm working on getting back up again into. I have a different perspective now on training, and I want to do well. I want to do well in my races, and so those are some of the things that I'm working on. And promoting wellness in terms of physical, mental, and I think those really some things that are important to me. And so through running and through what I do for my professional career, those are some of the things that I'm working on. And so yeah.
So the other question that I have is about resources. What kind of things would you point people to learn more about, or if they're curious about things that you've been discussing in terms of balance and discipline and goal setting and perseverance, something that you're listening to or that you've read, something that you've been watching, just to point people in that direction.
um, some other things, first of all, is for my personal viewpoint, is I've been studying a lot of human behavior, and so me understanding the human behavior helps me both in my coaching career and my mental working as a therapist. And so I could, there's some really positive things on Spotify that I listen to in terms of motivational speaking. I go to TED Talk a lot just to for the self boost, and I learned a lot of different things about basically human behavior, and also for motivational for motivational um, for motivational things. I'm reading I'm reading few books. It's not running related, but it's just mostly outside everything else. And so I'm reading *Sapiens*. It's a book that I'm really kind of trying to understand a little bit about human behavior, but then also resource-wise, in terms of coaching, we do have our coaches at 605 Running Company who really are good at what they do, and Coach Jerry and Jack, I mean, they're excellent coaches. I mean, those are really good resources if you want to find out more about coaching. Otherwise, um, Roadrunners Club of America has a lot of different resources, whether one wants to understand running more, and things like that. And for the people living around my area, I mean, for the mental aspect of it, we have different agencies here in town, but I work here at Family Service, here in Sioux Falls, which also, like, they give guidance to people, like, if you struggle with something, I mean, it's all right to talk about it, talk to somebody. It's, you know, a lot of people here are very, very good in terms of what they do. And so reaching out to those resources available, whether in your own, it doesn't matter where you live, but, but also looking for running clubs. If you're a runner, if you're looking for self-group, I mean, there's book clubs that you can attend, and things like that. Those would help with self-growth. But there's a lot of different groups around. But personally, things that I'm doing in terms of to help myself is just continued education. Not reading so much right now because of I'm reading things so much that are in line with my career. But given an opportunity, well, I do like listening to reggae. So that's why I find my motivation in listening to podcasts that are positive, TED Talks and things like that.
Yeah. That's great. Okay. So if people are interested in connecting with you or with a coaching service, what's the best way to do that? If they're an athlete looking for that.
Say go to www.run605.com, and you can find the coaching services. That's our website that we use. And also you can reach me at Benson at run605.com.
Okay. Yeah. And then in terms of services for mental health needs, relational needs, personal growth, those kind of things, you reference the agency that you work for, Family Services, there in Sioux Falls. And there are agencies providing care in almost all the communities. And if there's not an agency right in your area, the expansion of mental health services through video conferencing and phone conferencing has really grown. That's one of the blessings that certainly come up through this period of COVID is those services have really had to adapt to meet people where they're at, which is typically at home right now. So I don't know, is Family Services doing any kind of distance connecting, or are they able to do all of their services in person at this point?
Both. We are doing both distance and also
in the
at the agency.
In person. Okay, very good. Benson, it has been fantastic getting to visit with you today. I am so grateful for you, for your time, for your wisdom. It was just a really wonderful conversation. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward for something again in the future. So thank you.
I'd love to have you back on the show talking about other goals that you're setting, so you can be just dropping more wisdom for us in this venue. So,
all right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Hey, bye.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe through your podcast app so that you automatically get the latest episode when we release it. I plan to publish one episode a week, every Monday. Also, consider taking a moment to review the show if you found our discussion meaningful to you. Good old word of mouth is great too. Let people know about the Well Mind podcast and spread the word. During the show, Benson and I made reference to a few different publications, resources, and podcasts. You can find all of that information in the show notes page. Many thanks to the staff here at the Bethany Lutheran College podcast studio. Greg, Seth, and the newest member of the team here, Caleb Schilling, have been tremendous in providing technical support for the podcast. And special thanks to Lauren McMacken for designing the logo and cover art for the Well Mind. So next week we shift gears and navigate the crossroads of spiritual wellness and mental wellness. Pastor James Hine is my guest. He is pastor at St. Marcus Lutheran Church in downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. James is an old friend of mine, and I'm so happy to have him on the show. He's thoughtful, genuine, and compassionate, and shares his own journey with the mental health diagnosis obsessive-compulsive disorder. He speaks about the Bible's nuanced approach to wellness and mental health in a way I don't think we hear very often. It's a conversation brimming with meaningful insights and practical strategies. So thanks again for listening, and until next time, be well.